Now that we have made our selection, we have to edit our files. And I do recommend that you edit your files before you start keywording or captioning them, because there will be situations in which the final result is not really what you wanted, and you might end up not submitting your files at all. So if you have already keyworded and captioned your images before that happens, you have worked for free, essentially. So, don't work more than you should. Now let's go ahead and start editing them, and at this stage I'll be performing only global adjustments, so no skin retouching and such or anything like that, just exposure, contrast, white balance, and so on. So let's do some basic editing. I'm using this stylus here and a basic tablet from Bamboo, which I recommend you invest on as well, especially for local adjustments. But let's do some basic adjustments now. Right, so as I mentioned earlier, now we have the 27 images that I selected as my final images. And the cool thing about Capture One as well as Lightroom is that I don't need to edit each of them individually. All I need to do is edit one of them that kind of resembles the others, and then I can copy and paste all the adjustments to the next file. So it's really a nice way to do things. So let's just bring my tools up here, and I want to start by adjusting the white balance, and that's when you have a gray background, that's the perfect way to adjust the white balance. What you do is you just click on white balance, the tool here, the eyedropper, and Lightroom has the very same eyedropper actually, and just click on anything that's supposed to be mid-gray or neutral. So in this case, the background here is perfect. I mean, it doesn't get any more neutral than that. So I clicked on that, and now my white balance has been adjusted. And the next thing I want to do, make sure your screen, of course, is at the brightest, because especially if you have a Mac, you have the sensor. You can switch that off, but I prefer to have the sensor when you're working at night and stuff. The screen goes darker. Now, let's start with my white background images. So the white balance, sorry, I haven't copied that. So, in the gray background image, I have already the perfect white balance. Let's go ahead and just put that on my clipboard. So white balance, copy, and then I'll go ahead and apply this white balance to this image. There you go, it changed quite a lot. So it's a bit greener now. Nikons have, especially the D800, D810, they have a fame for adding their own interpretation of the image, adding a kind of layer of orange on top of the file. So now I neutralize that, which is good. But I still see that the histogram is not very useful when you have a white background, because it just shows me the clipping here shows me that some areas of the image are completely overexposed like that, which is of course our intention. But that also means that I don't have much more detail here to work from in regards to my model. But let's go ahead and just make visual adjustments to start with. The exposure I'm happy with, which is good. I took the light reading on the spot. Remember when I used the light meter to measure off the model's face and so on. But I do think the image can do with a bit more contrast. So let's add that. And I'm not sure about the saturation. I don't want to use the highlight slider unless something is overexposed on my model's face. Because if I start recovering whites, that's going to turn my background gray and not white. So I just want to keep that maybe localized. But in this case, I don't have any overexposure on my model's face. I just have it on the background, which is what I intended to do all along. Now, shadows I maybe can recover a little bit without compromising the contrast. I see there's no pure blacks here, so just make sure that I have some, because it looks quite cool. And I want to add some clarity maybe, just to make things pop a little bit more. See ahead, look how sharp that's very crispy sharp, which is really nice, everything here. One thing I had to mention as well is one of the rejection issues, or one of the rejection factors is chromatic aberration. In fact, this image I can just do with a little bit more exposure, to be honest. Could have measured this a bit better in studio. Now, chromatic aberration is a reason for rejection, so you need to be aware of that. And I'll show you what it looks like. It's not very prominent here, but it's usually around highlight areas. So you see that this area here of the string coming out of the hood, there's a blue or cyan outline. It's not aberrant, you see, it's not really well defined, but it can be improved. So Capture One lets me correct that a little bit. I'll just analyze that again. And there you go. So the white or the blue line has been minimized now. And this is an issue you have with your lens, is not really something about your sensor. So I just want to be sure to check my images at 100% to make sure that I have no chromatic aberration, or if I do, it's just under control. Chromatic aberration is also called fringing. Usually purple fringing is the most common color, and I also don't want to have that. In this case here, I think my lens he's done quite a good job. I mean, even here in the little strands of the hood, it looks quite nice. I might just recover a little bit of the hood here, not too much, because remember, I don't want my background to go gray. I just want the hood details to be recovered a little bit. So let's just try that. Yeah, it's close enough, I think. It's good. And this is a very challenging thing, of course, I mean, because it's pure white, there's a lot of light bouncing off there to the front, and some of that light is actually eating up some of the strands of your hood, or my hood rather. Okay, so that seems to be quite all right. Chromatic aberration here a little bit too, but it seems to be under control. Important thing is that this area is fine. It just looks a bit too dark still, so let's test that. Now, I have adjusted my first file, and if I look at the original versus now what I have, it's actually quite a lot better. So now I can simply, but you know, the following images, they are pretty much the same as the first one before I adjusted it. So I might want to just copy these adjustments. And in fact, I think it's actually too colorful. I actually would rather see this a little less, because if I make it too colorful, it just looks a bit orangey really. So, well, no, it's all right. It's under control. Now let's copy all the settings here, and I think you can even do here, you see. So copy adjustments, and then I'll select all the images that I want to these adjustments to be copied to. Select all of them, and then I make sure that the adjustments are being applied to all of the images, and I will apply this, and then I'll see my images, you see, being refreshed. There you go. So my initial adjustment has been applied to all of the images. So you see how quickly that went, and now they're all already adjusted. So I don't have to waste any more time doing that. So all my white background images have been adjusted to my preferred settings. I need to be careful here with overexposure, but it seems to be all right. Yeah, great. Now, this is another image really. I can't use the same adjustments because sometimes it works, but most times I need to do something different with it. You see, this becomes a bit too aggressive really. So let's just adjust that one. It's just a different background. So I want to make sure that this is usable. Now I can recover some of the highlights because the background is supposed to be gray, not white. Here, that's quite cool. Here, brighter, not so bright. Like maybe here. And always being careful not to overexpose anything. And that looks quite good. A bit more clarity. There you go. Vignette no, okay, so I'm happy with that. Then I can remove at a later stage the softbox if I prefer, or I can simply crop the image to what I want. So I'm just going to crop it here. Sorry, I grabbed the whole thing, the wrong thing rather. There you go. Now Capture One is actually stuck at the ratio here, so I don't want to keep, I just want an unconstrained crop. And remember, I don't need to have that much copy space or negative space around the model for one color only, because the client can do that themselves if they so wish. So probably can just kind of make it a more interesting crop, like a medium format crop maybe, like so. There you go. That looks quite interesting. You see how much better that is from the original. See? Before and after. So it doesn't matter how good your images are straight out of the camera, there's always space for improvement. Now I probably want to copy these adjustments, and I can apply to the second, kind of supposed to be white background here. Not sure it's going to work. The crop I can reset, because it's not the same crop at all. I can maybe just crop this a little bit here, so I don't have that ceiling going on here. Then not sure really if I want to use this image. I might even downgrade it to 1 star. But at the moment it's not doing any damage, just leave it there for now. And I'm going to decide what to do with it later. It's quite, yeah, I just like the image, but also there's the issue here with the background, but I like the expression, the pose and everything. Might even be more blue here just to kind of make it more dramatic. See, quite interesting. But there is a lot of contrast here that I'm not sure I want. Just cool. Now, this image here, so now I have a black background and I just need to do the same thing I did before and make sure that the image is what I want it to be. I really don't want to throw so much light onto the subject's face. Just want to recover all possible, make sure I'm not overexposing the background. The background is going to be underexposed. I mean, just not underexposing the face too much and not overexposing the hood fur there. Okay, so I might want to increase. See, it's dangerous to increase the shadows here because then it's going to increase the background with it. And also the same thing with the exposure. In fact, this background is not even pure black, but I don't want to go too far because my subject is quite interesting as it is. So just maybe increase the brightness here, which should not affect the pure blacks. That's quite interesting. Cool. Image banks are quite funny when you get too artistic, you see. So for this situation, not really sure I want to do global adjustments. I might as well just kind of, adjust the model alone rather than, you know what, I'll just mark this image red by pressing 6 and now I know that I have to do something with it. That's a better one because now I have the rim light, so let's try to adjust this image instead. I really don't want to make the background any brighter than that because I really wanted a black background for that. So contrast, blah blah. It's a much more moody situation, of course, which is fine, of course. That's what I wanted. That's my my concept for the shoot. Yeah, maybe a bit more color. Doesn't become that dramatic. I'm quite happy with that actually. This looks quite interesting like that. Maybe slightly too contrasty. There's a lot of contrast on the light itself, so I don't need to go that aggressive on it. So just copy all the adjustments and see how they behave. These are not really the same image. That's different in light. There are differences in light. Let's just copy to all of them or paste to all of them and see what it looks like. And now I can adjust one by one as necessary. Okay, that's the one that I had initially. That's the second one. Seems to be all right. Again, not too happy with the contrast. Is a bit, I mean, I really wish I had more light on the subject's face, which I sort of later with a reflector like that. Let's crop that out again. I don't want that to be seen, just gives away the whole thing. So there, and there's the contrast more, brightness. Maybe I want some more. Maybe I want some more highlights. So, more contrast again. It's quite dramatic, and that's really cool. And that's a portrait, but it follows the same principle. I mean, the hands here are really overexposed, or not really overexposed, but really bright. It's kind of competing with the face, so I just want to darken the hands a little bit more. And maybe recover the highlight. There you go. So good, it's not competing anymore. Same thing with this one. Just make sure that these are not really too bright. Just make this. And I can see before and after. Just bring the whole hand back a little. Yeah, the exposure, because I really don't want it to compete with the face, you see, because the face is my main subject. As I said, I mean, this is kind of a local adjustment, but I'm happy with it. It's not, I don't want to get too fussy at this stage. I might do some more editing on the eyes and everything after I finish explaining what I want to explain here. Now, this is the kind of image that might work in some agencies, but it's kind of risky, especially if it's your first submission. because it is bordering a bit too conceptual, you see. It's not really commercial. It might just be a little too creative, say, for the likes of microstock agencies. So I'm not really sure I'll be using them after all, but so far so good. So let's just make this a little bit more bright. And in fact, yeah, maybe, so I'm selecting still the layer of the hands. There you go. So I can see more of the model now. I think it becomes more interesting. Make sure I'm selecting the right layer. But again, be careful not to do that. You see, my background has now turned gray, so I want to only affect the highlights or the mid-grays if I'm brightening up this image. In this case here, the bright background is under control still. That's quite nice too. Maybe even a bit brighter there. And here, the color is quite funny on this one, so let's try to just white balance this a little more. And that's terrible. Alright, so let's copy these adjustments and maybe apply to those. It's too much, definitely too much. But that would work nicely here. Good. It's quite interesting, too much contrast, but interesting nonetheless. Yeah. Good. Okay, so I can just keep on doing that. You do that to your files, of course, until you achieve what you're looking to achieve. In this case, I'm just getting to the stage where things are ready. So you see, this might be a bit too dark now. There's not enough contrast here. I might need some local adjustments. I like that a lot, so just leave it there. There we go. Just make the subject a bit more prominent. Don't forget your message is the most important, yeah. Cool. Alright, so I finished the end of my 27 images here, and I'm happy now with these basic adjustments. So the next step is going to be keywording and captioning these images, which we're going to do next.